So consider getting an advisor who is willing to battle for you inside. He doesn't have to advocate for you publicly, but he has to be able to defend you inside. He doesn't have to necessarily even be agreeable to everything you say. There are people out there that are moderates that would like you guys because they see potential. All right, and they liked, there is a classic type of establishment thought where they go, we can't just have the liberals running, even though they're a liberal. We can't have the liberals running everything because, you know, we might miss what's something that needs to be done because the conservatives see it. It's a very kind of a exercise of power philosophy where they try to balance things out. So don't disregard somebody that just because they're not completely in line with you guys, but they have to, if they're not that, they have to advocate for you inside when they talk to chancellor or administration or something like that. And they got to have the, you know, cojones to do that. So I know it's very difficult in today's university. It's even harder to find somebody who is willing to do that. So I don't know, but that's my suggestion on it. But go ahead, let's do some question and answers. Anybody have any questions? Yeah.
And this is just on the lines of the PC. This is for, you can answer as well. Is there any age limit, like age minimum? Okay, sweet. All right, and then what does it like really entail? Like, what kind of work do you have to do for that position?
All right. I've been a PC. I've been a PC before a long time ago. I've been a state committeeman in California, and then I've been more of an operator for most of the time. But most of it is involving in votes. You're going to get involved in voting. You're going to get involved in electing your leaders in the Republican Party. At the end of the day, you're going to be the voice that has the strongest influence on who's going to be on the ballot box as a Republican primary challenger. Okay, so that's how important that is. Other people get to vote for the Republican nominee if they're a Republican, how many nominees they are, whatever. But the PCs play a crucial part in deciding who those nominees are. There are certain statutory requirements they have to do, most of which aren't really enforced anymore because the laws and regulations have transferred those powers over the course of time to other state and county and city agencies, such as registering voters. And a long time ago, you would have been involved in running your sanitation district. So long time ago, the PC people were the political bosses of their neighborhood. So, but that's kind of changed. Now they're the political bosses for their party inside the neighborhood. So, you know, it's really up to you on what you want to do with it at the end of the day. We could probably I'd advise to do a whole section on that, maybe, and have Dan come here and talk about it and being a PC and what that entails. Do it at another time, but it could be as little involvement as you want to as much as you want. But ultimately, at the end of the day, you get a choice on voting for your, you know, who the chairman of the party is, who, you know, and who's going to be on the ballot. You get an influence on that. So it's a good job to have. And, you know, we have our meetings once a month. You're at your local legislative district. Anyways, go ahead. Second one. Anybody got a question? What do you want to talk about? What was the question? Oh, what we were going to talk about. So we'll talk about offline on that, but Armenia was a former republic in the Soviet Union, and we've been having these discussions on this new conflict that's developed in Armenia with them and a nearby power, which is Muslim. I wouldn't call them exactly an Islamic state. They're very more kind of secular oriented, but they're they're Turkish, and on the other side of Armenia, so like Azerbaijan's here, I'm Armenia, and then over here is Turkey, has got ostensibly a strong man, if not a dictator, who wants to resurrect the Ottoman Empire. How that takes place, is that going to be like an Islamic jihadi empire? It could be up to anyone's speculation at this point, because Erdogan's a fairly shadowy figure on what he really wants, given his background. But Turkey wants to take absorb or confederate or whatever Azerbaijan, and going further off into Central Asia towards Afghanistan. All those countries in between Turkey and Afghanistan and north of Iran are Turkish speaking. And they got a lot of oil there, and it's been a place of conflict in the world between the West and the East, as in Western Europeans and, say, Asians or Russians, for centuries. So, Armenia is stuck in the middle there, and they're now in this battle with Azerbaijan over territory that Armenia seized at the end of the Soviet Union. So like when I was there, not in Armenia, but in Europe, there were a lot of different coups that were going on in Armenia and Azerbaijan. And I mean, very, very high James Bondy type stuff was going on there. Negotiators getting shot down in their helicopter after they had gotten to some peace treaties going on and had come to some conclusions. Pipelines, and I will not talk about pipeline strategy because it's got me in trouble before. So, but pipeline strategy was with the U.S. oil companies, and developing, oil was a key part of that. And so there's a pipeline that goes from the capital of Azerbaijan and through Georgia, which we now had almost a conflict with Russia over not too long ago. And then one part goes to the Black Sea, which is on Georgia's side, and the other part goes into Turkey. So it's kind of like a very complex situation. So it could blow up into a war between us and Russia, or it could become a war with Turkey, and then the Russians will get involved. I mean, it really has a potential to go big fast. So keep your eyes on it. And we have a huge Armenian diaspora here in the United States, so they're firmly backing Armenians. And yet we also have, going back to our oligarchs again, we have oligarchs. They want the oil, so they're backing Azerbaijan. And weirdly, you have the Israelis backing Azerbaijan, which means they're allied kind of with Turkey, but then they hate Turkey. So it's very complex, very complex. If you wanted to be in geopolitics, State Department, or any of that other kind of stuff, you could write your doctorate on this thing, or just do a career operating in that area as an oil person or whatever you want to do, government agency. So yeah, it's a complex and tinderbox that could really explode and impact what's going on. So we were talking about that, Armin and I, and so that's what he is referencing. Yeah.
It's still pending. We want to do like an email blast, which we haven't done yet. That was just for Discord, but it is overwhelmingly in support of Armenia. I thought it was going to be neutral, but yeah.
So there was a poll on this.
Yeah, we did about 12 people voted so far. I think it was like 10-2.
For Armenia?
For Armenia, and 2 neutral.
Oh, okay. Well, Armin, don't you have anything to say on it? Coming from your background, as I understand it, it's, you could probably provide a little bit more sophisticated viewpoint on it than us newbies. Do you want to say anything? I don't want. I'm sorry. I'm putting you on the spot, but I'm only doing that because I think you probably have some good points to raise.
Yeah, so like I they probably just want like power or like nationalism. Probably nationalism is like their god.
Mm-hmm.
And so like Nagorno-Karabakh like cannot be like given to the Armenians.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it was just a matter of time before like because it's like an identity thing for them. So if they lose it, it's like an identity crisis. They don't know who they are.
Mm.
But their like population is like 3 times bigger than Armenia. So like I guess people are waiting for Russia to decide. Like Russia tends to defend Orthodox countries.
And Armenia in particular, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I guess Russia should probably do it because like they have bad blood with Georgia, so they can make peace with Armenia.
Mm-hmm. And Armenia is allied with Georgia. So it's a very complicated thing. And Georgia was fighting Russia. So it's very complex when you say like you've got a lot of interlocking people that would normally be allies, but they're adversaries, right?
Yeah, I guess like there could be a point of like not supporting Armenia because like Turkey would be weakened.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you dig down to this for huge ways. So the territory he's talking about is and I always do violence to this name, but Nagorno Karabakh, and it's like I don't know. You can think of it as like Mormons in Chihuahua, Mexico, right? And they successfully declared their independence and joined the United States. And we kind of incorporated it, but between our border and where those Mormons are, that still remained Mexico. But then we went in and occupied that. So that's kind of like what's going on. So Armenia, even though it's smaller, has managed to defeat Azerbaijan. They already fought a war in this, starting from 1989, I think, until 1990. Well, most of the fighting was 1994, 95. But like a lot of people died. I mean, it'd be like if we lost 900,000 people in a war in 5 years, which would be the biggest loss we've ever suffered. So it's a pretty big deal. Armenia's got like 3 million people, and Azerbaijan's got 9 million. And so they had 30,000, 50,000 dead people, and like 600,000 people got displaced. So I mean, it was a big traumatic event for their small countries. So and you got Russia there and Turkey, and so this thing could really knock off. Yeah. But Armenia, it's justification for the Armenians here who tend to be Republican. Actually, I shouldn't say tend. They almost are always Republican, particularly in California. They have, like, a long time ago, the Armenian population was much bigger than it is now. But the Turks, along with Azerbaijani people and Kurds, like slaughtered them in a genocide during World War I. They killed probably about a third of the Armenian population. And probably another third of the Armenian population left, and with many of them coming to the United States. So you have an Armenian population here in the United States descended of those guys, and they are like, we want the U.S. to back Armenia, and we're going to go all the way into pressuring the political people to do it. So they did a huge demonstration in LA about 4 days ago, like hundreds of thousands of people. And they do it usually annually, but they literally brought out in a matter of, I don't know, 3 days, 250,000 people to show up at once. So, and that was just in Los Angeles. So there's a big political backing for it, but Republicans traditionally are allied with oil companies, and our oil companies kind of want us to befriend Azerbaijan. So it's kind of a complex situation. Yeah.
Why hasn't anybody
I have. I did. No, there were. The are vacant, yeah. Yeah.
Why hasn't anybody, really pitched them on it? Let them see the light. Like, you don't have to go do your marches if you take over the party.
Let me answer that really quick. During 2015, I was originally a volunteer just doing all sorts of stuff for the Trump campaign, and then I became director of Middle East outreach, which involved Armenians as well. So I ended up trying to get the Armenians behind Trump, and I went to Little Armenia or whatever, Glendale, California, and was working there and trying to get people to back Trump, and then followed up with backing them into getting involved in the PC thing. And I did that also for other communities here in Arizona. And the problem is that to do something like this required more horsepower than I could do. And there just wasn't that many people that, barely did they recognize Armenians except from like movies, let alone Assyrians, which was the other community I was working with, one of them. And the people in the Republican Party were just like, didn't know what the hell I was talking about. So they couldn't get the gist of what was going on. The only ones who could were very big establishment Republicans. And that's because in the old days, Armenians used to give a lot of, the senior Armenian leaders used to give a lot of money to the party in California. And our governor in California for a while was an Armenian American. Dugmajian was his name. And so he came in during the Reagan era. And but that kind of is gone. And so there wasn't a lot of knowledge, like they would look at me like, what the hell? And then worse than that, ambitious people in the party, plus some of the establishment people didn't like what I was doing because, they can't control me. And so they went in and sent other people in to steal the initiative from me. So, and that involved some of the LD representatives and my own LD. So it's a battle. It's a battle, Dan, because, and there are some downsides to pursuing an overtly ethnic outreach like that, particularly with Armenians, because as somebody said here, the Armenian mafia, blah, 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 and the Assyrians have the same problem. And so that it's not, I wouldn't exactly call it a mafia as we understand it. It's more like a community organization that does unethical things, but that's how they have a community. And when they live overseas, particularly in the Middle East, they're heavily persecuted. So they rely on these people for protection. And, most of the Armenians are just, vast majority are just normal, including many of the political organizations. But there was a sense I got from some of the senior guys, they were a little apprehensive about pushing that so far as like what I wanted to do. And like I said, other people just didn't like what I was doing, and they came in and stole it, use it for their own ends. The Assyrian community here, and this is going to be recorded, I'm going to get in trouble for this, but that's all right. So the Assyrian community here had a little enforcer kind of guy for McCain for many years, and he came from Iraq. He was a Ba'athist party member, which was Saddam Hussein's party, and his brother too. Anyways, they got out shortly before we had the war in Kuwait, I think. No, shortly after. And, some of our agencies brought them over, so they've got protection that way. And they just got inserted inside the United States. And, they developed a business, they did their business and all this stuff, and they did their thing. But anybody who tried to went over and try and organize the Assyrians here in Arizona until me, really, ran smack in the middle of this clique of people who worked for McCain. And I don't know why McCain did that. You know, who knows? I don't think it was, well, you know, like me or whatever. I just think that they just didn't want anybody doing it. They didn't want anybody to do it. So for various reasons, who knows? You know, McCain took that to the grave. So I could speculate, but I'm not gonna. At the end of the day, no one could organize them, and they're very conservative people. So they're now, that group of people is now back in control of that community. My initiative was stolen from me, and the people were either thrown out or turned. So, you know, all that entire community is going to back. I mean, if John McCain came back, half of them would vote for him, the other half wouldn't. They would hate him. But so, you know, it's a tricky business. This is deep politics. This is what you do if you want to be a political influence maker. That's how it works. The Democrat Party is even worse. They've got like how many identity groups that they're dealing with, you know? They've got Hispanic groups, and the Hispanics got the Cubans and the Puerto Ricans and the Mexicans and the conservative ones and the liberal ones and the communist ones. And they got the Vietnamese and they got the LGBTQ, and, you know, I mean, they got all of this stuff going on. So the Democrat influence makers, you want to talk about sophisticated power brokers, because they've got to manage that. That's why sometimes the Republican Party gets called the stupid party. Democrat Party is the evil party. So when the stupid Republican Party and the evil Democrat Party get together and do something both stupid and evil, it's called bipartisanship. So you got to be, you've got to look at this with the jaundiced viewpoint, but look at the guys on the left. They got to manage a situation that is way more complex. Yet why the heck can't we just knock this unbalanced coalition on the left flat on its butt? It's possible. You could do it. We can do it. You just got to learn how to find out where those little areas are, like the Armenian groups, or, you know, the conservative students in the ASU, or, you know, the workers in that Trump was going for. Bam, do it. Yeah. 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 Everything you just said there, bullseye, right there. Right there. What you just said, including creating these groups, the Democrats figured out, you know, if we just start creating new groups out of thin air, we can control even more people. So that's what they've done. Fragment society. Fragment it down, manipulate it, break it down. Serves the tool of tyrants. That's what it comes down to. But as Republicans, we got to deal with what we got. So, you know, we've got to outreach to some of, you know, these our own identity groups. I'd like to see an American identity group. I'm not Armenian or Middle Eastern. My family's been here since 1600s. So, you know, I wish there was something like that. But there isn't any support for that in the Republican Party either, interestingly. So, yeah. AIM. Oh, the Indians. Which one? Oh, the American Identity Movement. See, there was an American Indian movement, or is that right? Did I get that right, Dan? I forgot. So there was a group, before Indians were called Native American, they were called American Indian. Original Native Americans, that's what they called people like me. There was even a party. It was called the Native American Party. Real truth. And you know what it became? The Republican Party. So, little factoid there. But any other last question? Anybody else got one last question? Lady in the back, I know you're thinking about something. You got a question? Pick one. Pick one, pick one. Mm-hmm. What is bias? The journalism school or? Mhm. Cool. Awesome.
Screaming. Screaming. It's wild. So, yeah, I just wanted to know, like, what, I guess I'm looking for camaraderie. That's what they're doing all their comrades.
Yeah.
That's what we're missing. They're all bound together.
Sure.
Groups and we don't have that. We don't have the executive marketing.
Mm.
That's the big thing is that conservatives have always been boring, but we're not bad at it.
Mm.
We are the inclusive party. So we have to do what they always do and put this big, beautiful picture on it and get everybody running over here. And it doesn't have to be deceptive. We just need to bring brand because we're not racist, bigot, zealot, people that want to burn down buildings. We're just not those things. And so I'm here to hopefully bring brand.
Cool. Yeah. No, that's all true. You're going to find at academia, it's going to be totally biased because that's what the first target of, well, liberalism from the early 20th century hit was the schools. And then the socialists figured out, I don't know, there's all sorts of theories, but around World War II came in and started infiltrating the schools. The new move of the new progressive academy has been building for a while, but just to give you an idea of where it stems from, Bernardine Dohrn was a terrorist who blew up people and blew up buildings during the 60s and 70s. And she became a professor. Where was that at? University of Chicago? And Angela Davis, yeah. And, you know, I mean, these people became professors. And they found students. They tutored those students. They mentored them. They got them to become teachers and or professors. And it built from there. That was 50 years ago. Yes. Yeah, Saul Alinsky. And that's a good point because going back to the tribalism I mentioned, he's from Chicago. And 100 years ago, Chicago was a city of tribes, Polish, Italian, Irish, German, American. And they lived in their own little area, and black, and they lived in their own areas. And they had PCs, they had precinct committeemen who they elected, and that's the original mob. That was the original mob. And they ran sanitation, they ran newspapers, that was the original mob. And what Saul Alinsky figured out was that all these guys were all fighting over stuff. And coming as a communist, he was like, well, they're fighting because they're nationalist. So what I'm going to do is we're going to get them to be all a bunch of progressives. So he changed the identity from ethnicity to ideology. That's what he saw in transforming Chicago. And his acolytes were a few black Chicago city councilmen and a couple of Irish and a Republican city councilman who saw that. Why the Republican did it, I don't know. I think it has to do going back to corporations and things. But so yeah, Saul Alinsky. And that is what's motivating almost all the identity movements in the Democrat Party, despite saying they're Hispanic or black or LGBTQ, they're all run by far left people and often by homosexuals. So, but I mean, no, I'm just, it's a fact. I mean, this is part of the communist subversion strategy that began a long time ago, and they hit underground communities, you know, back in the 20s and 30s, and started recruiting people, usually to blackmail them, so they could blackmail people. Like, for instance, the spies in the UK that helped bring down the Western intelligence network right after, in the beginning of the Cold War, they were homosexuals, and they recruited each other, and then the KGB had blackmailed them and said, we will ruin you because we'll expose you as homosexuals unless you work for us. And already being socialists, it wasn't too hard for them to go, sure. So they did. So, I mean, that's just how it's been evolved over time. So you have a lot of that in the Democrat identity movements. But anyways, Republicans can attack that in their own way as well. Not all homosexuals are communist. Plenty of them are just vanilla Republican types, log cabin Republicans. I mean, there's a guy down in Tucson, Beard, who's a running for supervisor. God, you know, I hope, let me just retract that. I don't know for a fact, but anyways, we got homosexuals in the Republican Party, and they're conservative, and they will literally basically echo everything I just said about how the left dominates that community through blackmail, through intimidation. It's kind of a cult. It's a cult thing. So there you go. So anyways, thank you for having me here, and I'm glad I'm ending on that great subject. So be a PC.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. I guess we're going to do an upside down meeting today because I'll go through the slides. Well, actually, first we have a representative here from the Sheridan for Sheriff campaign. Cody, if you want to come up and give like quick 2-minute spiel about Sheridan. 5 minutes. Okay, I'll give you 5 minutes just because I like Sheridan. Huh? Yeah, co-founder.
So as Jolie said, my name is Cody Friedland. I am the Gilbert captain for the Jerry Sheridan campaign. And right now the Gilbert area needs a bunch of volunteers, mainly to do flyers and door knocking for now, but we might later on in the campaign advance to other things such as phone banking, research, whatnot. So I'm just going to pass this around. If you're interested in volunteering for the campaign, just give me your name, your phone number, and your email. So I'll start with Matt right here, and we'll just pass it down. And just one more thing: don't let the media or Paul Penzone himself fool you when they say, "Oh, Penzone isn't a political figure; he is a far left activist." He ran his entire 2016 campaign on basically, I'm going to purge every Joe Arpaio policy. He is very pro-gun control, and he's even called CRU an extremist group that has bigoted principles or whatever. So it's really important that we get out, we door knock, we make sure that Sheridan wins this. So thank you, Joey.
All right, and now we'll go through the slides. So I know at the very beginning I talked to you guys about how we wanted to do a video of the students talking about why CRU is important to them. So I think we're going to do that right now. If any of you guys want to come up here, take the microphone, maybe give your name, your major, and then just talk about why CRU is important, why it's important to have conservative voices on campus. How many people should we get, Rick? Like 3 to 5?
Talk as if you're speaking to the advisor that's considering to take up.
Okay. Who wants to do it? Awesome, Jesse. So it's filming right now. So if you just stand behind the table.
Right here. All right. So, as we all know, being like in clubs and just like supporting, our stuff on campus is important really for the main part of just like free speech. Without free speech and without coming here, we just like sort of relinquish our, ability to have a say in the things that go on. So especially on campus, as being, college students, it's super important that we just kind of get out there and, you know, even just meeting here and just making a, you know, making motion in the, you know, on the college campus and just doing things, bringing in speakers, making noise is important to show, you know, even like the faculty, but also just the city that, you know, there are people that support these things. Because if we don't, we all know that the, you know, the education and the colleges are just run by, you know, these liberal, progressive ideologies. And so if we, you know, are in here, we're, you know, we can create a huge, you know, roadblock and, you know, make noise, like I said, for these people. And so, you know, having a club and being able to come here is important for free speech, you know, especially being in person, you know, and seeing people and creating just like a group of people, like she said, a coalition. And, you know, it's just good to have and see people face to face and bringing in speakers. And so, you know, we really need clubs and stuff like that so we can feel a part and feel like we have the ability to voice our opinions and not have that be taken away from us. So, yeah.
Matthew, what is it?
All right, so my name is Matt. I am the former president and vice president of CRU, and organizations like these on college campuses are incredibly important. They cannot be overstated or understated. College campuses around this country, as we all know, are predominantly leftist, more progressive, and decidedly becoming much more Marxist. And organizations like ours stand as the bulwark against this ideology that's creeping into our society more and more. You know, it's not just the leftists that we're worried about. Now we're worried about people that we believe are on our own side, that act more like their liberal counterparts than they do authentic conservatives. So we need organizations like ours. We need members like you all. We need an advisor who's willing to stand up for us in voicing our opinions and being able to follow our convictions and our principles and to live those out freely, not just for other students, but especially for those in our own communities. Thank you.
Let's see. You want to try? Yes.
Stand anywhere.
Stand behind the table. That's what the camera will pick like this.
All right. Hey guys, my name is Joseph Murray. I'm a sophomore here at ASU. This is my first semester with the club. College Republicans United is important to me for 3 reasons: community, camaraderie, and civics. Number 1, community. It is important to be around like-minded people. We are social animals as humans. It is a very refreshing, a very fun, a very good thing to be around people who you relate to and get along with. Community. Community. College Republicans United is important because we all have a vested interest in our community. We have our set of political beliefs, and without people on both sides trying to put forth what they find important, we find ourselves in a power vacuum where we're only listening to one side of the story. And if only one side of the story is being told, there's not a balancing act between the left and the right to find what is right. So if there's not a equally powerful or equally loud force on the right who's putting true conservative values, we're not going to balance out the far left. So without that, without both sides of the equation, we're left with a voiceless right who falls to a power vacuum of the left. And as for civics, it's a very important thing to have political clubs on campus. It's our civic duty as citizens. It's a very important thing to be involved. And if this club doesn't go on, I won't be able to exercise my civic duty as good as I have this far. And I want the opportunity that I've been thankful to have be extended to next semester students and the more people who would like to join but haven't yet. And if we don't have a faculty advisor, that's not going to exist. The community I like is not going to exist. We're not going to have camaraderie, and we won't be able to exercise our civic duty. So be a civic advisor. You don't have to agree with what we believe, but if you agree in the policies that make America America, if you want us to be able to follow our civic duty, if you want us to be active citizens and try to do our best to make this country a better place, I beg of you, please be our advisor. Thank you.
Thank you. Nina? There you go. And then just stand behind the table.
Okay. Hi, I'm Nina. So I actually dropped out of ASU this year as a freshman. I gave up a pretty great scholarship I had. And the reason why wasn't just that I wasn't invested in school, it's also the fact that my classes were so insanely biased that I couldn't handle it anymore. And I think that there's a lot of people who are going to be in the same position who maybe don't have their parents paying for their school. And I'm doing just fine not being in school. I can work and do other things. So I doubt the Marxist principles that are promoted in every classroom are going to change, but at least having CRU for the time I was in ASU definitely made it a lot better for me to have some sort of outlet. So the students who are paying so much money to attend classes here and have to suck up all of the propaganda and are scared of countering it because of getting bad grades, and we can tell the professors are biased since we are scrambling to find one to help our club right now. So if all of these students have to suck it up every single day in their classes and write essays maybe they don't agree with to get good grades, they at least deserve an outlet where they can express themselves, and CRU is an outlet for that. So I think just under that principle, ASU can suck it up and just say, okay, we can deal with CRU a little bit if these students are spending this much money going into debt for an education and having to deal with the Marxist principles. So yeah, that's all. Thank you.
Okay, well, I think that was enough people, and that was all really good. So good job, guys. So after this, I ran outside to go order pizza. So after this, we're gonna go outside to the patio area, and we're gonna just work on finding faculty advisors. So if you can't make it, I completely understand. But if you can make it, you are more than welcome to. You'll have pizza. You can hang out with us, and it'll be outside, so you don't have to worry about the mask thing. So that's what this was talking about, finding a faculty advisor. We are now past the deadline, and I did get an email at about 2 o'clock today saying we are no longer a club status. We are frozen. So I'm surprised nobody came in here to tell us that we're not allowed to meet, but we'll keep meeting. But we do need a faculty advisor to be able to access things, because if you look us up on Sun Devil Sync right now, you can't find us. So, oh, is that a raised hand?
He hasn't signed on yet.
He's thinking about it. That's the issue. He's busy. So he seems like, yeah, this guy, Werman, he's the one who is helping the bars in Arizona sue Doug Ducey. So we reached out to him thinking that he would be pretty base, and he is, but he is super busy with suing Doug Ducey, which is understandable. And then we also had, huh? Oh, sorry. We also had the vice president reach out to the other two, and they never got back to us. So we're back to the drawing board. We're going to hit them up today after this meeting. So yeah. An event that's happening also, Mike Pence is coming to Arizona this Thursday. If you want tickets to go see him, scan the QR code. And then we also do a Back the Blue rally every Thursday if you guys want to come. I wasn't there last Thursday, but Cody, Matthew, and Rick were, and apparently it was really fun. I think the Proud Boys came, so that was, yeah. Oh, okay, sure, but you enjoyed it, so yeah, hopefully. We've been inviting him for a bit, so hopefully. He was out of town for a bit, yeah. So, and we finally got a CRU megaphone, so that should make things just that much more interesting. So if you want to come, message me. We can work out carpooling if you live on campus or something. It's officially 5 to 7, but we usually stay there until like 8:30. So, because usually the most fun happens when the police officer they leave. So it's just us against Antifa. But yeah, we did kind of a backwards meeting, so that was supposed to announce a speaker, and that's it for today. So do we want to go to the front and take a group picture? Okay. Let me stop the recording.